friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here today to talk more about off-grid ways of cooking because something came up that I hadn't really thought of in some of my previous videos. Now if you're interested in more on these topics, I have a few different videos I'm going to link you to in the description box down below. One of them is on, I did a couple years ago I think, about cooking on top of a standard wood stove. We're not talking about your wood cook stove, but just a regular wood stove that most people would use just for heating. And I cover a lot of the different ways that I cook on that. Then I have the one about the Winterwell wood stove top oven that I have since acquired and using that. And I did one on the pros and cons of a wood stove. And then I have another video where I talk about the many different off-grid ways, whether it be a wood stove or a camp stove. But today's going to be more about cooking in an open fireplace. If you have a fireplace but you don't have a wood stove, what are some ways that you can cook in that fireplace? So first let's talk a little bit about how you look back a long time ago when fireplaces were first put into homes. It was for the purpose of not just heating but cooking, and so they were very tall, very open, not like the ones you started seeing put into homes like the one we have here much later. Like this house was built in 1965 initially. This whole room here was actually built in 96, but the house when it was first built just had your standard fireplace, and they're not very big. They're just meant for having a fire in, maybe for heating, not really for cooking. They don't give you the kind of space that the old-fashioned fireplaces did. So when you consider that, hundreds of years ago, these stone fireplaces, they were tall enough that they would have some kind of tripod or something that would hold a big pot or something to cook on. So with that in mind, I started looking around to see, is there a way that you can do something that like that isn't as tall? Like you might be able to get something like that, like this setup right here, I think is a great one for an open fire outside. In fact, I would like to either get or build something very similar to that we can have for out at our other pieces of property. For whenever there's camp outs, or if we ever have to move onto those properties, we can have another way that we can cook just on an open fire. But a lot of those are made too tall to fit inside your standard fireplace. So I did a little bit more looking, and I found this one right here that is much shorter that I believe would fit in your standard fireplaces. But then I also found something that looks more like a giant plant hook that should also fit inside your fireplace. So I'll link to some of these different things down below so you can look at them for yourself. Now the thing with the hook, you could use it with a big pot, but sometimes there's things you just want to set on a shelf. So then you would consider getting one of those hanging shelves like you would use off of a tripod over any kind of open fire, where it's basically a grill. You can either cook right on it or you can set pots on top of them and cook that way. So that would give a person a couple of different options that I think should work. Now in a real pinch, now this is one thing that we have done. I have to say, I'm not speaking from experience on all this, but we have cooked on open fires before when camping. Obviously, we know hot dogs and various other things. You can also get those types of long-handled grills that you hold over a fire. We've had that so that you can actually put a sandwich or a hamburger or something in there and you can actually turn it over the fireplace, and that's just holding it by hand. We've had various types of grills that you put over the fire, as well as the tripod. We have one of those. But as far as cooking inside a fireplace, the closest thing we came to was when we still just had the wood stove insert, but we had nothing to cook. There was no space because it was just pretty much flat against the old fireplace, because that was, you know, before we got the place, somebody had installed an insert into the fireplace. So there was no cooking surface, but we had a power outage and we had nothing to heat with. So this was long before we had any kind of gas generator, solar power, or anything like that. And so what we did was we actually wrapped some leftovers in foil and then stuck them into the fire down, you know, where the coals are. So Even though aluminum isn't the best thing to cook in, because we all know overexposure to aluminum. I've covered this in a few other videos. At least it's something that's better than nothing if you need to cook some food. We've done this on open fires too at camping, putting potatoes and whole ears of corn into the fire like that and then just baked them that way. And that's a good way to do it. But like I said, we also did heat up our food that way. Another option would be, which would be better than the aluminum foil, is to, if you don't already have a Dutch oven with a lid that's cast iron, you should get one. We have one, even though I've only used it a couple of times. That is a really good thing for using with any kind of open fire, because you can either put it on top of the fire in some form, or you can actually set it in the fire to a degree. You can make yourself a hotbed of coals around there. As long as you have enough space, you can set that in there and you can cook all kinds of things. Now, there is one of my followers, Linda, who commented on a related video about how she cooks and bakes inside her wood stove. And so hopefully she'll come in here and comment again. So please, Linda, or anyone else who has experience of actually cooking either in a wood stove or on or in an open fireplace, so that other people can learn from you as well. Because as I said, I'm not as experienced at doing those things as I am doing others, but I did try to do a little bit of looking up to find some different things that might work inside of a fireplace for those who are looking for that option that already have a fireplace. But even if you don't have a fireplace and the only cook source you think you'll have in the event of a power outage is an open fire, well, a lot of these things will work great for that. They're meant for that. So consider either building yourself, if you weld, you have access to metal parts where you could create some kind of stand to cook over an open fire. Just start doing a little bit of research. Now, Patrick, he's built all kinds of stuff using old bed rails. Those are the angle iron that we're talking about. And that's what he used to make the dehydrator rack that I can use either on top of my wood stove or right next to it, which is where it gets used most of the time for dehydrating all kinds of things. So I would imagine that you could come up with something very similar if you weld at all, and just by getting some old bed rails and making some kind of rack. The great thing about that is you know it's not going to melt. You can use it with an open fire if you need to. And it would seem like it would be fairly simple. And that way you can make it, you can adjust it to fit your particular needs and any additions that you might need as far as that goes. So that's pretty much all the ideas I had as far as that goes. But I also just want to reiterate the fact that it's really important, especially now more than ever, that we all have some kind of backup way that we can cook our food, even if it's as simple as just a little single burner propane stove, or getting an old camp stove that somebody's getting rid of for $1 like we've done, or even using your barbecuer if you have one of those. I think we all have at least something we can use or purchase that isn't too expensive that we can use to cook with if we absolutely need to. Even if it's just simply taking a bunch of candles and propping them up under something where you could put a pot on top of it. I've mentioned this in another video, and just heat stuff up that way. That's if you absolutely have to heat. But this is also why it's important of having home canned goods or even store-bought canned goods that you can simply open up and eat right out of the jar or can, and it doesn't have to be heated. So that's another thing. There are things you can do where you don't have to cook at all, but it just means you're going to always have to eat the stuff cold. But if it's already cooked, it doesn't matter. You can eat cold chili, cold canned meat, cold vegetables, cold fruit. It doesn't matter. That can be done in a pinch. But having a way to cook or heat the food, or especially a way to boil water, that one especially is going to be important, probably more important than all the others. So if you have something that you can heat water on, that's definitely a good start right there. Okay, well, don't forget to check out the videos I'll be linking to down below, and to also interject with any ideas or information that you already have that you think others could learn from in the comments down below. And don't forget to check out those comments down below as well. And remember, if you're trying to find those links, you got to either click on show more if you're on a computer right down here below my channel middle name in all caps, or if you're on a smart device, an iPhone, an Android, whatever it is, right over here, you should see a little gray triangle or arrow. Click on that and that will open up that description box. You can see our Etsy store link. You can see our email address, any video links that I think that will be helpful to you, and so on. So that's where you find it. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you a few ideas. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.